to have you on. I don't think that I can turn, there we go. Don't think I can turn on my video right now. This is Lindsay speaking, and we're really excited to have you. So we're going to start just by some introductions. Hopefully you will start to know our faces. So I am Lindsay Stevens. I'm the Director of Teacher Leadership and Learning at the Center for Strengthening the Teaching Profession, and I'm the one that's been sending you all sorts of emails, and hopefully we'll continue to do that a lot. Naswe, do you want to introduce yourself? You're still muted.
Hi, everyone. Good afternoon. Naswe Nishida, Executive Director for the Center for Strengthening the Teaching Profession. Thanks for jumping on this afternoon. We're really excited to get this spring pilot moving forward with all of you. So thank you for joining us. Ed, you're up.
Good afternoon, everyone. Ed Vandenberg, Senior Learning Strategist with Bloomboard. Looking forward to moving this spring program forward in the Bloomboard platform with all of you.
I also noticed that Marin has jumped on. We weren't sure if she'd be able to be on or not, but we'd love for you to introduce yourself.
Hi, I'm Marin Johnson. I'm with the Professional Educator Standards Board, and I'm thrilled that you all are looking at our RWT micro-credential this spring. Thanks.
All right. So we'll move on to the next slide. And our learning objectives for today is we really would like for educators to be able to see the big picture of micro-credentials kind of across the country. I know that's been sort of our question we've been getting from people is, what is this thing? And we'd also like you to leave being able to access and utilize the Bloomboard platform. And we'd like you to be able to discuss what quality evidence collection looks like. Just make sure that when you guys are submitting that evidence, that it is where you want it to be, and you can get great feedback. And then we'd like you to see an overview of office hours and cohort support, and then really we'd like you to leave ready to start working on your micro-credential. Okay, oh, there I am. I don't know if you guys can see me or not, but I'm there. Thank you, Naswe. All right, so those are our objectives. You guys can use the chat function for questions as we go along. We do see those kind of pop up, and hopefully Naswe or Ed, and we can all monitor them and yell at each other. So, all right, here we go. Next is really, what are these micro-credentials? And I think we're going to have Ed talk to us about this one.
Yep, so the national micro-credential landscape, I mean, this is just the higher level sort of Department of Education or Professional Educator Standard Board across the country. We are actually, micro-credentials are clear across the country. Every one of these states would be highlighted, but we're just going to highlight sort of higher level pilots and programs that are going on. So why don't you click on to the next one? So in Kansas, Arkansas, Connecticut, and Delaware, the focus has been on teacher induction. And of course, we've got Washington, we've had computer science and cultural responsiveness as a focus, plus in Utah and Tennessee, Florida, and Rhode Island. We also have some different areas of focus, actually going towards, in some cases, towards endorsements in these places for different things like financial literacy, STEM, and clinical educators. Then in Minnesota, Kentucky, and Texas, we're moving forward with CTE, and I believe Tennessee is probably going to be coming on next with the CTE and workforce development. And lastly, we've got our leadership pilots happening in Hawaii, Louisiana, and Illinois. So as you can see, there's different groups that are really focusing on using micro-credentials for various reasons, but really moving from strictly professional learning into things like endorsement, and in the state of Louisiana now with principal licensure, using micro-credentials for that. So that is the big picture, and Washington is part of this big picture, and we are very happy to have Washington as partners in this. So what are micro-credentials? Really, it's about showing your competency, and you do so by collecting a body of evidence, or really a portfolio of evidence to show that competency. In all Bloomboard micro-credentials, you will have a description of that skill. You'll have specific requirements for proving the competency, and you will see the performance rubric for each requirement. It'll be very clear to you in terms of how your portfolio of evidence is being assessed. It is not a secret. It is right there for you to do a self-assessment prior to submitting to earn that micro-credential. So we went over this briefly for those of you who either attended the information session or watched the video. So the thing to know is, I think, that a micro-credential is similar to earning a driver's license, in that however you learn, however you get there, you are going to have to show your competency by driving. And just like a micro-credential, you're going to have to show your competency by collecting evidence to show that you can do it. Sometimes it's actually, implementing in the classroom and video recording yourself. But you'll need to show that competency just like you need to in that driver's license exam. It didn't matter how you got there, but you had to get in the car and meet certain criteria, and someone you didn't know was going to assess you based on a specific set of criteria. And just like a micro-credential, there's going to be that specific set of criteria, and you will not know who the assessor is, although they are highly trained, certified assessors, just like they are at the DMV. You do not have direct contact with them, and they do not know who you are. Those assessors only see your evidence as a submission ID number. They do not know who you are, and you do not know who they are. So it's a very objective assessment that occurs. Just like a driver's license, you may not earn the first time, and that's okay, because on your driver's license, it doesn't show how many times it took you to pass that driver's license. It's just that you have that license. Micro-credential is exactly the same way. You may need to resubmit multiple times, and we will go over that important information, but that's absolutely okay. It's about earning that micro-credential and achieving that competency.
So we have Maren on the webinar from the Professional Educator Standards Board. This is really the PESB's overarching goal around the Recruiting Washington Teachers program. And Maren, I don't know if you'd like to say a few words or not. It's up to you. We're kind of putting you on the spot. But if you'd like to, you can say a few things. And while Maren talks, you might want to look at identify some key words in that statement that are interesting to you. Maren, go ahead.
Sure. So the Professional Educator Standards Board, we are a policy board. We work on educator credentialing policy, but we also work very hard on diversifying the educator workforce in Washington State. We want to support programs that support an educator workforce that reflects the diversity of our students. And we look at this at all levels. For the Recruiting Washington Teachers program, we're looking at identifying future teachers in Washington State right there in their own schools. So this is a Grow Your Own program. This is one part of our much larger Grow Your Own efforts. And so this is supporting those high school teachers who are in our classrooms right now in pursuing education professions. So those are the overall goals of our Recruiting Washington Teachers, RWT programs. RWT, it's founded in equity pedagogy, and as you explore the curriculum, you will see that. And helps reflect on the cultural identity of students, helps teachers reflect on their own cultural identity, and supports our young people in considering becoming teachers.
Thanks, Maren. So really quickly, we just want to do a quick interaction with you all. In the chat, which you can find, it shows up at the bottom of my screen. It's a little white kind of thought talk bubble. In the chat, if you would write a word or a phrase that either strikes you as you read this statement or something that Maren mentioned in her comments, we just like to see some things that you're thinking about in terms of being part of this spring cohort. Thank you, Carrie. She wrote grow. Thank you. Ashley wrote explore. Thank you, Ashley. Dory, equity. Emily, exploring cultural identity. Thank you. Someone wrote lens. Aaron, cultural identities. Thank you. Seth, both teachers and students will be exploring their cultural identity. Thank you. And Ed chimed in. Thank you, Ed. He can't help himself. Grow our own. All right. We can move to the next slide, Lindsay. Thanks. Ed, do you want to talk about this one?
Sure. So the goals for micro-credentialing is that Bloomboard micro-credentials will be a meaningful professional learning experience for you, and that earning the Bloomboard micro-credentials has a positive impact on teaching and learning. And those are the goals for the PESB in this pilot, as well as the other pilots that have been going on.
Okay, I think this is me. So a little bit about this, may be a review for many of you, as we've kind of set it in our materials out to you, and also in the previous webinar we had. But just to make sure we're all on the same page, a little bit about the overview of going through this micro-credential pilot for RWT this spring. So upon submission of the micro-credential, and you've all picked one of the 3 that are available for RWT, you will be eligible for 20 clock hours. So that's something as a part of going through this that you're going to receive. You will also get a digital badge that you can use on a resume. It's a great resume builder. It's something you can put on any kind of social media platforms where you may be sharing some of your credentials or expertise and experience. You will have the opportunity to be part of a network of people going through this with you, and we'll talk a little bit more about where you are all from and what you're doing across the state. But there are, I believe right now, there are 19 of you that are doing the spring cohort, which we're very excited about, and you are from all over the state, teaching, leading in different areas in K-12 education, and also in other areas as well, which we're excited about. We definitely feel like micro-credentials are an opportunity to try out this particular model around micro-credential support. So we have done 2 pilots of this work. One was last spring in 2018, and we also did a fall pilot. And we've learned a few things. So we're excited to try this as a potential mechanism to support people doing this process even more. And we do feel that this will lead to a real opportunity for people to delve into professional learning in a way that we've not ever offered in Washington State, in a way that is self-paced and self-managed, but also gives you the opportunity to really dig deep and take your learning to places where you may not have considered before. So we've got 3 micro-credentials available. I think all of you have identified one of them when you signed up for the pilot, for the spring pilot. We are going to be, we will allow you, if you would like, and if you're kind of on the fence about whether you pick the right one for you, you will have an opportunity to change which one you want to do if you prefer a different one than what you originally signed up with. So there will be a window. It's not going to be very long, but you have a little bit of a window if you do want to switch that up. And then obviously we're shooting for you to earn your first micro-credential, hopefully by June, by the end of your school year. So that's kind of the overview.
It's my turn again to jump in. If you can move to the next slide. Oh, there you go. Next one. Thank you. All right, so we are going to get into the Bloomboard platform in a moment. If you can go back one, Lindsay, that would be great. So you will notice that every micro-credential in Bloomboard follows a specific blueprint, and that is everyone will have a title, typically beginning with the verb, and then every micro-credential will have a description. And the description is very important. I want to emphasize that there's some key information in the description. So the very first sentence will have a definition of the competency. So leveraging RWT curriculum, that's the micro-credential that we're looking at here. And that could have been, come across in different ways in terms of what is that competency, but it's been described very specifically here. That's about filling your knowledge gaps and leveraging the curriculum to design, deliver, and reflect upon updated unit and lesson plans to meet the needs of students. So that's the competency that you are working towards if you chose this micro-credential. And then the next sentence are the principles behind it, and they're very key, and they will align to the requirements that you end up working towards and collecting evidence about. So again, every micro-credential will follow this pattern, so that those principles are also very key, and you should take a close look at those and not forget them while you're working on your micro-credential. You won't have to remember them. They will always be there on your page to reference, but sometimes some educators are not using it as that reference. And then lastly is the why. What's the rationale for this micro-credential? And so in this case, it's about creating a replicable process for you. So whichever unit that you end up choosing, you can use this same process to leverage future units that you design. So it's very important that you're creating a process for yourself that's replicable in order to improve delivery of the curriculum and support students who are preparing for careers in education. Once again, you will see this model played out in all of our micro-credentials, just like you will the ADDIE model, which is that next slide. So we are using the ADDIE model of instructional design, and every micro-credential in the Bloomboard platform will follow this model. And if you can click once there, it should highlight the analyze. So every micro-credential, you will begin with an analyze requirement. Then some micro-credentials, you will both design and develop something. In some cases, you will only design or develop. And then next, you will always implement, and you will always evaluate. So the A, I, and E are in every single Bloomboard micro-credential, sometimes both Ds and sometimes just one. And those are the requirements. You can stay on this slide, it's okay. They are, we call them requirements. And when we get into the Bloomboard platform, there's some language I'm gonna share with you. One is the requirements. So each micro-credential has specific requirements, and another is criteria. So within each requirement, there are specific criteria that you've got to meet. All right, so at this point, I think if we could make sure that you guys sign into the Bloomboard platform, if you haven't before, and I'm going to share my screen. I know it's difficult to watch a webinar and also work on your computer, unless you're like me and you have a couple of screens, it makes it a little bit easier. But I do want to show you what it looks like when you sign in. So everyone should have access, should have received an email from Bloomboard. If you did not receive an email from Bloomboard, you can simply go to my.bloomboard.com and make sure you're at my.bloomboard.com. And you can simply sign in with the email address that you registered for. So whichever email address you use to register for this micro-credential through CSTEP, that's the same email address that we put into our system for you. So if you did not get that Bloomboard email, which you should have, you can always just enter that email address and click Forgot Password. After this, at the end of this, we can ask and make sure, check in that everyone has been able to sign on. So I just want to do a couple things in a click-through here. I don't want to do too much click-through training because, for one, it can be extremely boring, and for two, it should be that the platform is accessible to you and you can figure a lot out on your own. So a couple things I want to show you. One is you can simply click on your profile here, and I highly recommend that you upload a picture here or something, so make it personal. Just makes it a little bit more personal, and something that you're gonna be working on a lot, hopefully. So personalizing that makes a lot of sense. To go home to your home page here on the left-hand side in this blue bar, you simply click that icon, and it's going to take you to your home page. So this is your home page. It has everything you need here. It will have your notifications. When you get notifications to the Bloomboard platform, they will show up right here. Down below is your program that you're part of. And when you click on that program, it takes you to some very important information. So the very first thing is a description of this program. And underneath the description, which you can hide after you read it, underneath the description are some very important milestones. And I would like to cover those quickly as we're here. So we are at the 5th. This is when our program is starting. The next important milestone is the 12th. Now, the May 12th is a submission deadline. So if you haven't submitted by midnight on the 12th of May, you will no longer be able to submit. So if you submit any time before the 12th of May, you're in great shape. If you've submitted by the 12th of May, you will also be able to resubmit in case you did not earn the first time out. And that resubmission deadline will appear here on our milestones after the 12th. We didn't want to confuse anyone, so we just put that very first milestone there. The very first, most important, you must submit on or prior to the 12th of May, which will then give you the opportunity to resubmit if you need to. And we will add that date after the 12th. That date, as it says here, is the 5th of June. So if you submit sometime prior to the 12th, it typically takes about 5 business days to get feedback from the assessor. If you do so before the 12th, you'll have close to a month, about 3 weeks. If you need to resubmit, you'll have time to do so. And if you resubmit by or on the 5th of June, you will actually have another set of time if you need to resubmit one more time. So for those who are planning this out, the most important date is that 12th of May, which then enables you to continue into the program. All right, so that's some important milestones and deadlines. The next thing is, where's the micro-credential? And down here where it says Choice Micro-Credential, you're going to click on this plus sign, and then over here on the right, 3 options came up here. So I know when you registered, you chose the micro-credential that you're going to do. And hopefully you decide stick with that micro-credential. That's absolutely fine, but you still need to choose it here in the Bloomboard platform, and you actually need to click Get Started to start you on the process. So for those of you who've chosen Leveraging RWT Curriculum, I'm going to choose that one right now. It has all the information that you need about this micro-credential. It's got the description at the top. It's got the ADDIE steps, along the requirements along the top here. You can click through and read about each one. You also have the rubric to look at. So if you're good with your choice here, then you're going to click Select here in the bottom right-hand corner. And now you have selected it, but you haven't started it yet. But now you've selected it, and you see that plus sign is gone, and now that micro-credential is here on your program page for you. I'm going to click it one more time and open it up. And I'm going to click in the bottom right-hand corner, click Get Started, because the one thing I need to do is to get started on this right away. And then you see it looks different once you click Get Started. So what has changed now for you is you've got all the same things. You've got the description at the top. You've got the requirements along these bubbles below the description. And then you've got your rubric down here. But now that you've started, you also have the place where you're going to enter your response to this requirement. You can type directly in this text box and it will save it for you. There's a button down here. You click save if you want, but it will save automatically. You can link, you can bullet point, you can number, you can upload, you can annotate. Lots of things you can do here in the text box with your evidence that you are creating or collecting. Some people would prefer working in a Word document and then uploading. That's absolutely fine. You do that by clicking here for upload, and it's going to take you to your computer, and you can choose your device, and you can simply drag and drop or choose it from your, if you have it on your desktop, you can choose it. It will, there we go. So lots of ways of creating and collecting evidence and uploading it here into Bloomboard.
And you guys, I'm just going to say real quick, if you didn't see it in the chat box, Nosaway reminded us that we are recording this webinar, so you don't need to remember what Ed just showed you to do. Also, someone who has been through a few iterations of the platform, it really is pretty intuitive if you've used any sort of uploading thing, and also I'm here all the time. So don't worry if that stressed you out. It's all right. You can watch it back or always reach out for help.
Yeah, and you can't mess up. You really can't mess up. The platform won't allow you to. One of the things you can do is you can also reach out. You can go to support here in the bottom left-hand corner, this information button. If I click Bloomboard support, I can click on using Bloomboard, and it's going to give you lots of help desk things in terms of uploading tips or starting a microcredential resubmission, adding evidence to a microcredential. It's all right here in the platform for you. You do not have to remember every little detail that I'm going over right now. All right, so that's a little bit about uploading evidence here in the text box. Remember, we are in Analyze right now. So the other thing I want to point out is there will be, at times, there will be specific resources that are in the microcredential. And you can see those here when they're highlighted in blue. It means that they're links. So resources like the RWT unit survey and the RWT curriculum units, these are things you need to use, and that's why they're directly in the microcredential. And you simply click on those and open up. This is the survey that the graphic organizer that was developed for you to help keep you on track and support you as you work on this. So this is you have to complete this RWT unit survey to highlight your strengths and knowledge gaps for each lesson. So this is not something you can write in right away. You're going to need to download this because I have some access here. It looks a little different for me. You're going to have to make a copy of this so that you can then type directly into these text boxes. So once again, if there's something here highlighted in blue, like you see, these are things you must use. Over here on the right, we've got background, learn, and collaborate. So background, these are some resources for you, and these actually are a lot of the same things you are going to see in the microcredential, but typically a Bloomboard microcredential will have requirements, resources that are required are here in the microcredential itself, and then in background and learn are optional resources. So the way we organize this, just to make this a little easier for you, this one, if you wanted to focus on culture, the cultural identity unit, you can simply get to it this way. It looks really good this way too. Or you can get to it by going to the curriculum units here. Multiple ways of getting to the same resources. You'll notice that some things will change as we go through the different requirements. So as you noticed here in Learn, it had the 4 curriculum units. When I go to Design, let's see what's in Learn here. We've got some different resources for you over here. These are also aligned to the curriculum units, but these are overviews. And you'll notice the background stays the same. So background will stay the same no matter what requirement you're in, and learn will change depending on the requirement. The other thing I wanted to point out here is collaborate. So in the Bloomboard platform, you can absolutely collaborate, and we've got the spring 2019 RWT cohort. Down here at the very bottom is where you are going to type in your message. If you are going to reach out to someone, for instance, if you wanted to reach out to Lindsay, I would type in @. As soon as I typed @, all these names came up, and then I'm going to type in L, and you can see it's starting to narrow down who my choices are. So I'm going to click on Lindsay Stevens as a facilitator. You'll notice it turns blue here in the collaborate space down here at the bottom. This means that I've done it correctly, and Lindsay is going to get an email notification that I am reaching out to her for some help. So Lindsay is the facilitator of this program, and the best way to get in touch with her is here through the Bloomboard platform using the @mention. Type in @ and then start typing her name, choose her, and then type in your message. You can also link here. If you wanted to share something with Lindsay in the public space, you could absolutely do that. You can just say hi. So I'm going to just do that right now. I hit enter, and you can see it's posted. Something important to note and has recently changed, that you can go back and you can edit your post. Yay. Or you could actually delete your post. If you made a mistake and you didn't mean to post it, you can click this little trash can underneath and it will delete the post. So because I @mentioned Lindsay, she's going to get an email notification letting her know that somebody has reached out to her in Bloomboard. And she'll click on that email. It'll take her right here to the Bloomboard platform and to that collaborate. The other thing we can do is, if I didn't want to collaborate with Lindsay publicly, because that's what I'm doing now, everyone will see this when you go into the Bloomboard platform and you go to collaborate, everyone will see this post that I just did. But if I just wanted to reach out to Lindsay and just have a one-on-one conversation, I'm going to go here to direct message. I'm going to click on the plus sign. I'm going to choose who I want to speak to. Again, I can just start typing. I type in L and I, and Lindsay came up. I choose Lindsay, and now you can see I'm starting a direct message with Lindsay Stevens. So if you're shy and you didn't want to share your wonderful work publicly with everyone right away, and you wanted to get Lindsay's feedback, you can absolutely use direct message. And we highly recommend that you use direct message to share your work in advance prior to submitting. Get some feedback from Lindsay before submitting for the micro-credential. I'm going to pause because I was just talking a lot. Questions, and thank you guys for, if something came up here, that you would stop me as well. Any questions at this point so far about the Bloomboard platform?
The chat is the best way to type in your questions. There is a Q&A box as well. Either one of those we are monitoring. So far, so good, Ed, I think.
All right. Then, again, there are 5 requirements for this micro-credential, but should be a number 6 here. It says summary, but it's not a number 6 because it is actually not an additional requirement. That's why it says 5. So the reason why this is here, let me show you. So right now I'm in design, and all I see is the design is the description, which is really important to always reference back to, the design requirement, and the rubric. And the rubric, it defaults to demonstrated, but if I wanted to see what progressing looks like, I could read what progressing is. I could also read what not met is. So here in the rubric, we've got, these are the 3 criteria on the left: lesson prioritization, pedagogical choices based on knowledge of students, and connection to learning. So there's 3 criteria in design. And to achieve this micro-credential, you've got to meet demonstrated for all criteria in all requirements. So just want to specify that, make sure everyone knows that. And then to show you what summary does, this is something to use right before you're going to submit. So now you're going to be able to see everything in one place. So you're in Analyze, and you scroll down, you look at your work. By the way, when you upload work, you'll be able to click into that work directly in here. If it's a Word doc or a PDF, you'll be able to open it up right here in the text box and take a look at it. And I can scroll down, I can see my design, my develop, my implement, and my evaluate. So it's just the summary, is a place to see it all in one place, to review one final review. And at the end, it gives you the submit button. When you have evidence in each one of these text boxes, that is when and only when that you can actually submit. So it doesn't even let you do it. It's a little fail-safe there for you. So that is the Bloomboard platform. I think I've covered the main pieces. One more thing I noticed on my notes here. I want to go back to my home page. And let's see. If I want, so this is a probably not going to happen, but if it does. So again, I'm back to my home page. Say I started working on leveraging RWT curriculum, and I've got a colleague that is a friend, and they've chosen a different micro-credential, and they're like, hey, it'd be really cool if we could at least support each other. We can't share the exact same work because we can't do that to earn a micro-credential. We have to always have our own work. But wouldn't it be great if we could collaborate? And you say, yep, I think it's a great idea. So I'm in my program page view right now, and you can see I've got my micro-credential. It says change choice here at the top. I can actually click change choice, and I can change my choice. Absolutely okay. Just know two important things. One, you can't change your choice after you have submitted. That doesn't work. Number two, if you haven't submitted yet and you've collected evidence and you've put it into the micro-credential and you change your choice, you're going to lose that evidence. Now, if you've done it in a Google Doc or a Word doc and you have it in your computer, of course you don't lose it, but anything you do in that text box and you change your choice, you will lose that work. So just keep that in mind. So if I wanted to change my choice, I was here in my program page, I click change choice on the top of the micro-credential. I simply go, it opens it up to the other two. I click on pathways to becoming a teacher. I feel like, yep, that's the one my colleague and we want to collaborate on. I click select. It actually warns me, said, hey, are you sure? And I say, yep, that's okay. And now it's actually changed my choice, and there it is in the program. So you absolutely can change your choice, but just do know you can't do it after submitting, and you will lose that work. I think that's everything in terms of the click-through that I wanted to do.
All right, thanks, Ed. So should I go back to?
Yes.
Oh, go back to my screen. Oops, or I'll get totally lost. Here we are. Share.
And by the way, you can get to collaborate also from your home page and also the program page. On that blue bar along the left-hand side, you'll see a couple other icons. One looks like a group of people, 3 people, and you can click on that. So there's two different ways of getting to collaborate. All right, Lindsay, yeah, if you can go on to the next.
Okay.
All right, so this is about collecting quality evidence, and this is an interesting one that we've run across, and I just wanted to bring to your attention. And that is, in a requirement, it might use the word narrative. And you can see here in this micro-credential, strategic grouping based on data. This is not a micro-credential that's in your program, but just an example I want to use. And you can see that the educator is being asked to write a 300 to 500 word narrative. And so that word narrative was used really instead of using words to describe is really what it's really meant to be. You do not have to write in narrative form. In fact, let's look at the next slide, which shows that two pretty much the exact same evidence. One on the left is a narrative form, format A, and one on the right, format B, is organized in a non-narrative form. Which do you think would be easier to assess? Anyone want to give their opinion?
Use the chat. Okay, we have a couple.
Oh, yeah.
Lots of people
everyone-
prefer B, Ed.
So, yeah, why do you think that is now, Soy?
Well, I will tell you, it is a lot easier for me to read as an assessor, and it looks like everything asked of them has been addressed.
Right.
Easily formatted, I guess.
Exactly. So yes, definitely. Please don't write in narrative form if you don't have to, and you don't have to. What you really need to do is in any of the writing you need to do is really you want to put your best foot forward to describe what you're doing and why you're doing it and so forth. So if you have prompts that you're responding to, add those prompts, to your document. If just organize it so it's easy for the assessor to read.
Ed, can I make a comment here too?
Absolutely.
So as somebody who has assessed some of these micro-credentials, I would also say you want your assessor to not have to work nearly as hard to figure out what part of the rubric you're addressing. So I think you certainly want to address all the pieces of the rubric, and I can't stress enough that people need to be sure not only to read the prompts and the things they need to collect and provide as evidence, but really read what the rubric is also asking for. Those should be matching up, but the degree to which you can lessen the amount of work your assessor has to do to make the stretch and try to connect the pieces, the better off everyone will be.
Yeah, and don't stress out over word limits either. So just to give a little bit of context to that, if it says write a 300 to 500 word response, if you can do it in 280 words, that's okay. Don't stress over I've got to add 20 more words. Please don't bother with that. If you have written 600 words and it says 300 to 500 words, again, don't stress over that. But a 300 to 500 word is typically a page long. If you're writing 3 pages, you've written too much. And then the assessors are going to call you on that. But that 300 to 500 word response, that's just giving you some context. So you're not going into it going, how much am I supposed to write about this, right? It's some context. And just really keep that in mind. All right, so some tips on completing your first micro-credential. One thing that we've noticed is sometimes the educators are not reading all the requirements and just kind of starting off with the analyze and not seeing the end in mind. So definitely read through all the requirements. Know where you're going with what you're going to do and evaluate. Know that in the beginning in your analyze step. Make sure you understand all the requirements and look at those rubrics. Look at both of those things carefully. And I recommend that you backwards plan to determine when you're going to collect and create that evidence. I think Lindsay's going to go over that a little bit later with you. Setting goals with a colleague. If you got a colleague that you can partner with and you kind of hold each other accountable, you know how that works in anything all of us do in education. We're all very, very busy. Having some goals and having a partner that holds you accountable, whether it's micro-credentials or even going to the gym, is very helpful. And consider which resources are best for you. If there's things that you need beyond that, what we've given to you, absolutely you can use them. Use your resources just like you do as a teacher every day. And you'll decide what's best for you. Collaborate with your peers. And when you can, get involved in that Bloomboard discussion as much as possible. Receive formative feedback on your evidence before submitting. Get that formative feedback from Lindsay, our wonderful facilitator, before you submit. Lindsay, I think we just changed a slide. a little too quickly there. There we go. So Lindsay, do you want to say anything about formative feedback in office hours?
Yes, I'm actually going to a little bit in just a few minutes, so we will get more.
Got it.
Okay, are we ready?
Yes, sorry.
Okay, sorry.
I was looking at the question in Zoom. So,
Gotcha.
so go back to the
This one?
previous slide. Yeah, there we go.
Mhm.
So you'll say something about formative feedback in office hours, and the thing that I'll end with here is I've spoken with a lot of educators about this. Educators, many of us want to be perfect, and we cannot let perfection get in our way. So this is new for you, and you know it's something that we're all trying in the state of Washington, right? So go for it. Put it out there, see how it goes. It's competency-based professional learning. If you don't get it perfect the first time, it's okay. It's more than okay, in fact, to get constructive feedback and go back to the drawing board. Don't let being perfect get in your way of trying.
Great, that's great, Ed. Oh, Ed, did you want to do this one?
Sure, and I went over
Slide.
this in the platform as well, but just a reminder, and we will post this slide deck along with the recording in the Bloomboard platform, so you can see all of this. But that important date of May 12th, make sure you submit on or prior to May 12th. Then once you do that, you'll have access to continue in the program until June 5th. If you need to resubmit, if you earn the first time out, great. Don't even worry about June 5th. But if you did not, make sure to resubmit prior to or by June 5th, which then gives you until June 30th for your final resubmission. And absolutely, if you submit prior to June 5th and you want to do a second submission even before June 5th or just shortly after June 5th, you can. Just the important thing to know here is you've got some specific milestones you need to hit in order to be eligible to work until June 30th if you need to. Great,
thank you.
Yep.
And so this is what I wanted to talk about for just a second. I'm actually going to send you guys in the email a little graphic organizer I made. It doesn't really look like this. It's just some boxes to fill in. But what I really like each participant to do is develop a personal timeline. And so really talking about when am I going to analyze, design, develop, implement, evaluate, and submit. And that submission is Sunday, May 12th. I do want to mention that that is Mother's Day. And it is a Sunday, so plan ahead, because at midnight on that night, if you're a mom and you like mimosas like me, you might not get it in by midnight. So make sure that you're kind of paying attention to that date and that you're on top of it. And so what I'm going to do is send this out, and it's a really easy graphic organizer. You're just going to put in the date that you would like to be done with that phase and kind of what you would need to prepare for that phase or what you'll have to have ready for that phase. So it's just some of that backwards design, that thoughts about submission. I know that, these kinds of things where you're implementing in a classroom with children or working with other adults in the systems, sometimes there's pieces you have to get to. You might need to be looking at your calendar about, when are tests, when are conferences, when is my PLC going to be, if this is something. So just being able to say, oh gosh, if I need to be prepared with something and there's some dates in there that I need to think about to help you plan ahead. So I'm going to send that to you guys. This is not, you're not setting deadlines that if you don't do it by that day, there will be shame and rage. Like, that is not what will happen. But there are also ways for me to know when to check in with people. So to say, hey, I know you'd wanted to be on design. How's it going? Have you had a chance to implement? So that if there are pieces that aren't working, I can help you problem solve and just kind of serve as a reminder or just kind of a partner in keeping yourself on track. Because I definitely know as a busy educator, when things get pushed to the bottom of the pile, sometimes I need someone to go, hey, pull that back out. So it's just to kind of help you. So I will send that out. I also wanted to just take a minute and talk about our cohort. So Nosaway mentioned some things. I do know, by the way, that the names of these districts are not geographically correct. They're sort of in the area. I was a social studies teacher for 15 years. I don't want you to think that I think that Monroe is up there, but I just kind of put them near the outside. So I just wanted you to see how many different districts we have represented. I'm really excited about it. Being someone who kind of lives in the I-5 corridor, we tend to get a lot of I-5 corridor. And we do have some I-5 corridor, but I'm really excited about some of the other things that we have going on here and the wide range and the different perspectives that we're bringing to this, which I think is going to be really great. Just a moment for my own bias is the most exciting thing about any of this for me is the curriculum. And I think it's so awesome. And every time I look at the RWT curriculum, I think every teacher should be looking at this. Of course, every teacher doesn't have time. So it is exciting to get other people excited about this around our state. And I just think it's really cool. So we have pretty balanced between high school and elementary school educators. We have actually 2 teacher librarians, one of them coming to us from China, so that is very exciting. We have CTE teachers, which we really wanted and are excited about, and we even have a Spanish teacher. We have at least 2 special education teachers. We have someone who is the chief leadership and strategy officer at their district. We've got dean of students, a Head Start coach, and then we have a program director from CISPIS, where I did my very exciting 5th grade camp years and years ago. So it is exciting that we have people from all of these different places, and we have people from kind of that early learning lens up to people who are working post-graduation. So it's really exciting to have all of you here and to get all of your different perspectives. So I just wanted to highlight how cool that was. You do not need to write these dates down. This is just here so that you can kind of see. There are some weeks that I am only available once, and I will send this to you, and it will be a constant link. So the link will always be the same, and I will actually send a reminder out every time there are office hours, about a half an hour before with the link, because I know I'm someone who's like, where's that link? So you'll be able to find it pretty easily. I've done 2 sort of time frames. So I've done some that are kind of that afternoon. So if you're a secondary teacher, you know, maybe you're joining on at 3. If you're an elementary teacher, maybe you're joining on at 4, but we'll be there from 3 to 5. And then some others that are 7 to 8. So that for me as a mom was kind of the, you know, after dinner time, tricking my husband into doing all the bedtime stuff. Haha. So having that time on there for you to join us. And, you know, it's always going to be open. I'm going to be sitting here working at my computer, waiting. Don't make me sit by myself. I really like people. But also, if there's something that is coming up that you're like, gosh, I'd really like to talk to people about this, we can request a topic and send that out. Like, we will be talking about this, or who else is having this struggle, office hours from this time, we're going to talk about it. The other thing that might happen is hopefully I'll be seeing a lot of your work and some of your drafts, and I may ask you to come onto those office hours to collaborate. So I may say, oh my gosh, you did this thing that is really going to help clarify it for this other participant. Can you join us during the office hours? And so I'm going to kind of matchmaker you that way. So I'm excited about those things. So so that we can get together. I really want this to feel like we know each other and it's not all happening on an online interface. So those are the office hours. I will send them out to you with the link. Ed or Nasway, are you looking at the questions? Are there any questions I should answer before I go on?
I don't see any questions. Okay. I think just to reiterate to everybody that these office hours are via a Zoom link. So you would come into like this webinar setting and have a conversation with Lindsay, and there could be multiple people coming in at once. So I think just think about that. It's a great opportunity to really get a question answered on the spot in real time versus potentially sending an email that it might take 24 hours to get back. So this is a good opportunity if you have something that's pretty immediate or is really stopping you in some way and you need a little push, in a nice way, a little push from Lindsay. So take her up on these things.
Yes, I love that. Okay, thank you. And so lastly is just kind of the support. That's kind of the end of the information piece. Ed has included all of these places, and this is kind of technical support, right, Ed? Yeah, so this is kind of your technical support place. There is support website. There is a place to link on it. You can also email, so lots of ways to get support. Ed, did you want to chime in?
No, you got it.
Okay. And then what we'd like you to do is these 3 questions. So what are your next steps? What are you most excited about? And what support do you think you may need? What we'd like you to do is, as a practice, go in sometime in, hopefully before Friday. If not, go ahead and take the weekend. But if you could answer these 3 questions inside the discussion of the, now I can't think of what it is, in the Bloomberg platform. And that way we can kind of see that you've gotten in and that you're starting to think about it. So this is one of the ways for us to touch base and make sure that people are engaged and ready to go. Ed, did you want to add to that?
I am posting them right now in the Collaborate space.
Thank you.
And Lindsay, in your follow-up email, will you just add those questions? Thanks.
Yeah, so the follow-up email will have the schedule for office hours. It will have your reflection questions. It will have a link to this webinar, and it will have a link to the Google Doc to begin your personal timeline for planning. All right. As other questions come up, this is just some more contact information. So again, if you need kind of technical Bloomboard support, there's that top one, but you can reach out to me for almost anything else by, as Ed showed you, going into the Collaborate platform or my email. So either of those are just fine, and I'm looking forward to helping you and to getting started. Do we have any other? Oh my gosh, it is 4:59.
Yeah, good timing.
Good.
Right.
One other thing, this is really our C Steps First entree into working with a cohort that is solely online in this way. So I want you all to know that we are learning and growing from this opportunity along with you. And if you have suggestions or have other ways we can push our thinking about doing this kind of work online, we are all ears about that. This is, more and more just time and location, and getting people to places is not nearly what it used to be. So any opportunity we can to kind of better our thinking about the work that we're doing as an organization is very helpful. And we appreciate any words of wisdom you have about that as well. All right. Are we done, folks?
As we about ready to wrap up, this is Maureen again. I just wanted to break in. So participants, you are very fortunate to be engaged in this initiative this spring. Lindsay, Ed, and Nosway are great people who will be taking great care of you. And this is some exciting material that you'll be working with. So we at the Standards Board are thrilled to have you and thrilled to be working with CSTEP and Bloomboard on this.
Thank you, Maureen.
Muted. Thank you, everyone, for being here. And look for a follow-up email in the next day. All right. Thank you so much.
Thanks, everyone. Have a great afternoon.
Bye.